So review-wise, we started the year with a review of a TurboGrafx-16/PC Engine video game, and how appropriate we're going to end on that very note. Thus, this is Street Fighter II Champion Edition for PC Engine. Originally released only in Japan way back in 1993, it was later re-released over to the original Wii's Virtual Console service in 2009, and that's the version we're looking at here today. So, for those who needed a quick refresher, Street Fighter II Champion Edition is the first major upgrade to Capcom's perennial groundbreaking fighting game originally released in 1991. It was the first version of Street Fighter II that not only enabled battles between the same characters, or mirror matches if you prefer that terminology, but it also granted players the ability to play as the four Grandmasters of Street Fighter II: the Boxer, the Masked One, the Dictator, and Bob Saget. Obviously, as most of you old-timers know, they changed the name arounds between regions to protect the innocent and to prevent any lawsuits from taking place, or that sort of bullshit. There were also some minor tweaks to the various pre-existing characters for balance issues or something to that extent, most notably in regards to the Grandmasters being a touch less threatening than they were in the original World Warrior game, but no less dangerous in the right hands. Being that Champion Edition on PC Engine is solely based on the eponymous upgrade to Street Fighter II, there are no options to toggle the speed of the game like you would get in Street Fighter II Turbo for the Super Nintendo or Street Fighter II Special Champion Edition on the Sega Mega Drive. As such, this game does not possess blazing fast speeds where characters can zip from one side of the screen to the other in a flash. Instead, fights play out at a leisurely pace with no means of increasing or decreasing the speed. So if you care for 10-star speeds or something to that extent, Champion Edition will leave you unfulfilled, and you'll just have to deal with the dreadfully slow and morosely sluggish normal speed, which all in all is perfectly fast enough for me, so whatever. Now, if you don't mind a port of Street Fighter II that does not run on warp speed, you'll find a competent version that plays fairly close to the arcade original. All the fighters play as they would in any other Street Fighter incarnation, although most folks whose familiarity with Street Fighter doesn't include anything before Street Fighter II Turbo will note some omissions due to their not existing at the time. To name a few examples, Chun-Li has no fireball attack. Blanca only has one rolling attack that goes straight forward. The differences between Ken and Ryu are more subtle than anything, and the red fireball is more of an Easter egg that pops up every so often than anything of merit. But even with less stuff and less speed, this version of Street Fighter II is still a fun time to be had. Control is largely decent for the most part. Mega Drive owners of the Street Fighter II Special Champion Edition might relate to this, but if playing with a stock PC Engine gamepad, your face buttons and your run buttons were your only attack buttons, while select was used to toggle between punches and kicks, a format that is quite cumbersome but could be workable if you're willing to tolerate this oversight. Fortunately, there exists 6-button gamepads designed specifically for games like Street Fighter II. In fact, playing this on the Virtual Console version enables 6-button gameplay if you're using a classic controller, and that's what I recommend you do. Get a 6-button controller and experience proper Street Fighter II gameplay the way it was intended to be played. In that regard, Control is pretty spot on with no real issues aside from the occasional missed move here and there, but for all intents and purposes you got pretty firm and responsive controls with Champion Edition. All is well for the most part. Visually speaking, Street Fighter II Champion Edition looks pretty damn good all things considered. It's not quite arcade perfect or anything like that. The fighters are generally smaller in scale, there's some missing animations. There's no parallax scrolling, so stage backgrounds are mostly static. The black bars behind the life meters and grayed out ground counters are a bit off-putting. There are some instances of gradients coming off as rough looking, and there's no attract mode intro featuring a white guy punching out a black guy, but still, it looks fairly similar to what you get on the other 16-bit consoles at least, and if nothing else, Street Fighter II Champion Edition looks the part and runs at a rather decent pace, no real complaints in this regard. Sound-wise, it's alright. You have most of the arcade sound effects and voice bites ported over to somewhat decent sound quality. There's something of a scratchy quality when it comes to the voice bites though, but nowhere near as bad as the Mega Drive version. In regards to the soundtrack, it's not a fantastic adaptation of the arcade music, and it's generally of lower quality, but all the tunes are there and the melodies sort of match up. It's alright for the most part. Although, I have to admit some curiosity as to why they didn't go the CD route like they did with Fighting Street. But I guess we avoided a bullet by getting a CD version and having it be redubbed Fighting Street 2 Eye Patch Edition or something equally stupid for a name change. Overall, Street Fighter II Champion Edition on PC Engine is a pretty solid and capable conversion of the arcade classic. While it lacks the speed and enhancements of the Hyper Fighting upgrade that the Nintendo and Sega 16-bit ports would benefit from because some people apparently care for that sort of thing, this is still a pretty solid dose of Street Fighter II that plays well enough with a 6-button gamepad that, if nothing else, serves as a nice step above the previous Fighting Street release. For collectors of PC Engine or TurboGrafx-16 stuff, this is well worth adding to the pile if you haven't got it already. And at least as of this recording, it's also available on the original Wii Virtual Console, as are the other dozen versions of Street Fighter II that are made available there. All that aside, Street Fighter II Champion Edition for PC Engine is a solid, well-made conversion of an arcade fighting classic. Good stuff.